We are looking tonight at Parshas Tazria-Metzora, although what we have to share comes mostly from Parshas Tazria. But the two parshas, in addition to the fact that we read them together, are closely related in terms of content and theme. And of course, they are dominated by the phenomenon of tsaras, different forms of tsaras, different forms of this leprous mark, which the Torah describes in a lot of detail. Prima facie, the subject does not relate to our current circumstances in the current era, because we don't have that phenomenon anymore. But as we shall see, there are aspects of it which are important for us to appreciate and from which we can learn. And as I said, it is a subject which is treated in the Torah quite extensively, so of course warrants our close attention. Okay, let's get it underway. So Parshas Tazria begins with Perek Yud Beis, of course, Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 12. The first chapter actually is a very short chapter, only 8 psukim, and in a way it's kind of a prelude to the main subject, and we're going to turn right away to the main subject, which I said is Saras. So let's take a look at Perek Yud Gimel, chapter 13, psukim Aleph Beis, the initial opening verses. Hashem Moshe vel Aharon lemor, Adam kiyev v'or se'es o sapachas o baheres. A man, it applies to a woman as well, actually, but Adam, we're going to discuss that in a moment, but the term Adam, of course, means a person. Kiyev v'or who has on the skin of his flesh, se'es sapachas o baheres. These are 3 terms that refer to the leprous mark. They are all different shades of white, and they have different subtle distinctions among them, but they share in common, they all are a form of this tsaras, which is similar to leprosy, although not identical to it. It is an affliction of leprosy, a leprous affliction. So he shall be brought to Aharon, the Kohen, or to one of his sons or his descendants in future generations. And the Torah here sets out immediately the process by which a person who realizes or who fears that he or she has this leprous affliction should go to a Kohen to have the matter evaluated. And as we know, the Kohen is going to provide some guidance, is going to maybe provide some instruction for ameliorating, for correcting, a remedy for the phenomenon as well. Let's look right away at some observations that Alshikh makes regarding the very expression Adam kihiyeh ba'or basaro. So he makes an interesting observation. He says the term Adam, of course, Adam was the first man. Adam was created by God directly, Yitzir Kapab. He was formed by, so to speak, the hands of God, using an anthropomorphism. So Adam represents a person in his most exalted form, the great potential of a human being. And he says very clearly that the other words that we find in the Torah for a person, like Enosh, which also means mortal, it means Enosh is the person, the son of Adam. Remember, Adam had 3 sons, Cain killed Hevel, so Cain had no future after a number of generations. Hevel had no present even, he was assassinated by his brother. So Enosh was the son, the subsequent son, Adam Shes Enosh. Enosh was the son of Shes, and the word Enosh, the name Enosh and the word Enosh refers to the human race. So Enosh is a term for a person. Gever is a term for a man. Geveret for a woman. Ish or Isha. Says Alshikh, the word Adam is a more exalted term. It is like a reflection of man at his best. And he asks about the irony. We're talking here about a Metzora, someone afflicted with a tzara, someone who, again, as we'll see shortly, has been guilty, at least at some level, of some serious transgressions, such as Lashon Hara and others. And it's ironic that this person is identified by the term Adam, which, the Torah could have used an alternative. Enosh, Gever, Ish. Could have said Isha, Isha, as the Torah very often does. Here it says Adam. We're talking about a person who is subject to punishment. He has been rebuked, so to speak, by the heavenly intervention. So why is he called Adam? Then he asks a more striking question, taking another further close look at this pasuk. Adam kiyeh ba'or b'saro se'eso sapachas o b'heres v'haya ba'or b'saro. Now the word v'haya just means, and there was, here's rendered in the arts, and it will become a tzaras affliction. However, we have a statement in the Talmud that the word Vayehi is associated with misfortune. Vayehi, it's like Vay, oy vey. Vayehi means misfortune. Even though the Gemara in Megillah clarifies it's only when the Torah says Vayehi b'yimei. Just Vayehi alone doesn't always mean misfortune. But in the Medrash and Or HaChaim and others frequently look for the misfortune in the word Vayehi. But conversely, the word v'haya, the Medrash says v'haya is besimcha. The word v'haya is contrasted with the word vayehi. Vayehi is misfortune. V'haya is simcha. And again, the irony is striking. We're talking here not about a simcha. Nobody's happy here. The Kohen maybe his talent is sought, so maybe the Kohen is happy. Probably not. The Kohen doesn't enjoy the suffering of other people. The man himself, presumably, is not happy. Where's the simcha, v'haya? So that's the second question. And he asks the third question, why does he go to a Kohen? This is a question which many have wondered. We're talking ultimately, or at least initially, perhaps I should say, initially we're talking about a dermatological condition. So why does the Torah say that a person who has one of these unpleasant afflictions, a form of leprosy, why does he go to a Kohen? He should go to a doctor. Again, this question many ask. What's the significance of going to a Kohen? So by way of introduction, Alshikh doesn't say this, but I would like to introduce the comments of Ramban, not here. Actually, Ramban says it in the Parasha of Sota. The Daf Yomi team are starting Masechta Sota. So the Parasha of Sota, Ramban says in his Parasha on the Torah, he says that the Sota phenomenon was something that existed in antiquity, and the system broke down eventually because there were too many instances. This already the Mishnah says there were too many instances of marital infidelity, and therefore the system broke down. But Ramban says that the whole phenomenon of the trial by water, which had a miraculous component, he says it's nes v'kavod liYisrael. It was a miracle and it was honor for the Jewish people. Because those who are on a high level are subject to divine attention, divine scrutiny, and I would say benefit from Hashem like prodding or prompting or hinting or alerting a person to the need for self-improvement. A population which is degenerate in its entirety is not going to be deserving or worthy, is not going to be the beneficiary of that kind of divine attention. That's what Ramban says about Sota, and I would suggest, I don't think it's my own idea, I may have seen in the Meshech Chochmah or elsewhere, the same is applicable here to Tzaras, which also doesn't exist in the biblical sense any longer, but it was intended as a means of a corrective, of helping a person who had fallen short in certain areas to be prompted to return, to improve, to reflect, to introspect. And the quarantine situation provided him with an opportunity to do so. So let me tell you how Alshikh approaches this. He says that this dermatological sign was indicative of the fact that he is a person of stature, and therefore Hashem will warn him in a manner which is visible and which is apparent when he's going off the path. A person of lesser stature, maybe Hashem won't, so to speak, bother with him. It represents an alert that when the matter is only skin deep, when it's only superficial, already at an early stage, at an initial stage, he is prompted to improve. it's like Mezarzo the tshuva. He is urged, he is prompted to do tshuva. And says, Alshikh, I'll read you a few words. Simcha techashev lo, v'hatuma chutza ba'or. It's a source of joy for him, because he has been prompted to recognize and to focus upon his failing. And also this tuma, this ritual impurity, has not penetrated to, metaphorically speaking, to his internal organs. It's only something which is on the surface. He can address the problem at an early stage. My father, Zechron Baruch, had a cousin. I doubt if his cousin is living any longer. Haven't been in touch with him, but in any case, his cousin was a dermatologist. And he used to say that dermatology is a great medical specialty. It's the best specialty to be in. He said, my patients never get better and they never die. So he has them for long term. They never die and they never get better. So this leprosy is not a pleasant thing, but it's generally not life-threatening, and just symbolically, because it's a skin condition, it's on the surface, so it prompts him to do tshuva before it's too late. He goes on to say that this indication that's on the surface, he says it hasn't, I've already mentioned it already, Alshikh mentions this a few pages later in a separate passage, but it relates to our subject. He says that it hasn't penetrated into his internal organs. And he says that is the nature of the kochos hatuma, the forces of impurity. They look to infiltrate, to infect a person, and ultimately to drag him down so that he cannot recover. And symbolically, the tsaras on the skin indicates that these nefarious forces have not yet enveloped him, have not yet penetrated his character. And therefore, he says that the rectification is through a Kohen who is Kadosh b'vchinas sharsho. The Kohen has holy a character, not just the individual particular Kohen. You might say, I know Kohanim, I wouldn't describe that way, but it means the Kohanim in terms of their pedigree, their ancestry. They are associated with Kedusha, with sanctity, and therefore by approaching the Kohen and getting direction from the Kohen, he has successfully, hopefully, he will successfully repulse this tuma, this ritual impurity which surrounds him or which threatens him through that leprous mark. So in this way, he explains, it says Adam, which is an exalted term because he's fortunate. And this refers to the Jewish people when they are on a high level. Yes, this person has fallen off the horse a bit. He's fallen off his steed, but he's prompted to get back in the saddle. The simcha, the vahaya b'simcha, for the same reason. There is simcha in the opportunity and in the urging and in the inspiration to do tshuva. And he goes to the Kohen because ultimately this is not really a dermatological problem for my father's cousin to deal with, but rather this is a physical manifestation of a spiritual malady, and therefore the treatment, the remedy, the cure must be through the agency of the Kohen. Excuse me. I'd like to now share with you a beautiful drash, a multi-part drash on the part of Alshikh about the statement in Chazal, the Gemara in Erchin, as to why tsaras, what particular chataim, what particular failings will bring about the punishment or the warning or the experience of tsaras. So very well known is Lashon Hara. And the Gemara does mention that. The Gemara says actually seven reasons for tsaras. So the Gemara says al shvuas shav, false oaths, Gezel, which is theft, Lashon Hara, slander, gossip, and the like, Gilu Arayas, which is sexual immorality, Shvichas Damim, which is bloodshed, Gasus Haruach, which is arrogance, if a person is egocentric, and the last one is Tsaras Ayin, which is to be narrow-minded, not saying narrow-minded, but to look at others in a critical, judgmental way. It's like a person who, it's the opposite of generosity, is to find fault and to be confirmed in one's lack of generosity. Difficult to render it exactly into felicitous English. So of these seven, the best known is the Lashon Hara, and I think that is because the word Metzora is Darshan Motzi Shem Ra, one who maligns, one who popularizes or disseminates Shem Ra, to slander others. Metzora has that remez. Also, we find the well-known biblical event of Miriam. Miriam and Aharon spoke in a fairly benign, in a relatively benign way about Moshe, and nevertheless, she was stricken with tsaras. The Torah describes that explicitly. So there you see the association of Lashon Hara and tsaras. There's another case as well, a bit more subtle, when Moshe was confronted or was summoned by God in his when Moshe was a shepherd and Hashem appeared in the burning bush, and he communicated with Moshe, and Moshe repeatedly sought to avoid taking on this mission, and Moshe said, Hein lo ya'aminu li, they won't believe me. So Hashem said, I'll give you two signs. And one of the signs was that Moshe was told to put his hand into his bosom, and he took it out, and it was leprous. It was white with leprosy. He put it back in again, and it was cured. So and that also was because he had maligned the Jewish people in saying they won't listen to me. So we find those several, and there are other associations of tsaras with Lashon Hara, but the Gemara mentions these other ones as well. Says the Alshikh in a beautiful drash, he says the first three we see already in this pasuk that we've been looking at closely already. This is pasuk base. Adam kia ba'ar b'saros se'es o sapachas o baheres. Now the art school people don't translate those three terms because in the commentary they might provide some indication of the different nuances of meaning. But as I said, these are three forms, three examples of the leprous mark. So says Alshikh, se'es, the word se'es means to lift up. In modern Hebrew, a truck, a lorry is called a masa'it. We say in the 13 attributes of mercy, nosei avon vafesha. We have Parshas Naso, which is to uplift. We have Su'es Rosh Bnei Israel, to lift up their heads, to count them. We have Parshas Ki Tisa, when you lift up the heads. So the word Se'es means to raise. So he says that this Se'es, which we said is a leprous mark, is associated with Shvuas Shav, because the Torah says, Lo Sisa Shema Shav. Do not raise up or do not articulate a false oath. The Torah says, Lo tisa shema shav. So therefore you see that se'es is associated or hints to that cause of tsaras. Sapachas, the word sapachas is really something which is an appendix. The word in modern Hebrew, mispach, is an appendix. I don't mean the organ of an appendix, but if you write a book or an essay or something like that, and you have an appendix, it's called the mispach. It means to add on, to add something on. And here, this sapachas is like something which is above added onto the skin, like a blister or some other kind of a scab or a wound. That's called sapachas. So the word sapachas means to add on. So he says, well, this of course refers to or alludes to gezel, to theft. He appends someone else's property to his own. He's got a flock of sheep and he steals a few more and adds that person's property to his own. He's got money in his bank account. He embezzles funds or he steals from another person and he adds that money, puts it into his account. Perhaps he won't put it into his account. He doesn't want to be caught by the money laundering authorities. So sapachas alludes to gezel, theft. Baheres is something bright, something clear, something like bright white, for example, which we're talking about white. So he says the baheres is associated with lashon hara, because when a person speaks lashon hara, he maligns or humiliates another person, or he exposes another person. As we know very well, lashon hara is even something which is true. So if someone knows information about another person which is uncomplimentary, and he tells it and he broadcasts it, he publishes it, he writes it in social media, so he could mortify the subject of his expose. And lashon hara, as we know, is forbidden other than limited circumstances, even if it's true. And he will be guilty of malbin penei chaver. When a person is shamed, his face turns red. But if he's exceedingly shamed, his face drains of blood. He's mortified, looks white as a ghost. That's called malbin penei chavera. So this is baheres. So sapachas baheres we have in this first pasuk refer to the first three of those seven. Shvuas shav, that's a false oath. Gezel is theft, and lashon hara we know is gossip and the like. Then he says shchin. Later on, we find a few verses later. Take a look at pasuk yud ches. So if you're following with me in the art school, it's on page 612. It says ubasar pasuk yud ches ubasar kiev v'or v'saro uvasar kiev vo ba'oro shchin v'nirpa. So shchin means an inflammation. It has to do with something which is like from a burn or something which is inflamed. So he says inflammation refers to shvichas damim, like a person has a blister or swelling in his body. That's called shchin, or rather shchin is that is a type of inflammation. So it says that is related to shvichas damim, which is bloodshed, because he quotes the pasuk in Dvarim, ki yecham levavo. If a person is angry, or if a person is enraged, or if a person is jealous, or if a person is villainous and he wants to kill, and he lies in wait for his enemy, va'arav lo v'kamalav, he rises up against and he kills him. So that is murder as opposed to manslaughter, because this is premeditated murder. And the Torah introduces it with the words ki yecham levavo. So we see that the inflammation here, the shchin, is associated with the heat, the passion, that leads to bloodshed. And he says that because it's so chamur, because it's so grievous, bloodshed is the most grievous transgression between man and his fellow man. Murder is the worst. So therefore, the one who is guilty of murder, of course, if he's convicted, etc., he'll be executed. But as you probably know, the ancient Sanhedrin had a very difficult time securing a conviction. It seems that the Torah doesn't actually encourage the death penalty, even when it perhaps would be deserved. And therefore, we're talking about someone, maybe he is guilty, but the courts are unable to carry out the death penalty for whatever the reason. And maybe this person regrets what he's done and he wants to do tshuva. So the tshuva, he can't just think to himself, "Wow, that's a terrible thing I did to murder someone else." There has to be a more severe process. So it says Alshikh, because it's so chamur, because it's so severe. So there has to be yisurim, suffering, lemarek, in order to cleanse him. It's not just easy come, easy go. A person who's guilty of such a terrible transgression, the process of tshuva must also involve discomfort or suffering. So this shchin is a suffering, but he deserves it, and it's the part of his teshuva process. It also says se'es levana, that he says maybe this is another form of shvichas damim. In other words, the shvichas damim, which is outright bloodshed, murder, but there's another type of bloodshed, not in a literal sense, but malbin panei chaver, we mentioned that earlier. If a person shames someone else, he shames him publicly, that is akin to murder. And there are two types, because the Torah says here in the next pasuk, in pasuk Yutes, vayabam b'kol mashin seis levana or vaheres levana adam dames. So it could be a raised mark which is white, or it could be streaked with red. So Adam Damas streaked with red refers to the actual bloodshed, and the Shchin Levana, the white, refers to someone who has done something which is akin to bloodshed, which is to shame a person, as we said, Malbin Panei Chavero. So you've got the hint of the red and also the white. The next one, in the minutes we have left, so we've done the first three, and then we did the fourth is Shchin. The fifth one, he says, is actually, I got a bit ahead of myself, because the next one, oh no, I'm okay. Take a look with me, please, further on that same page, on Pasuk Chav Dalet, O basar ki v'oro michvas eish. So here we have the reference to a burn from fire. Now, it could be a burn that literally someone has gotten too close to the kitchen stove or whatever it might be. It could also be something that burns like fire because of the pain that this condition, this tzaras, is causing him. But it's, again, a particular form of tzaras. As the Torah says, michvas eish. So it says, Alshikh, michvas eish refers to Gilu Arayos, refers to sexual immorality, which is called Michveh. He quotes a pasuk in Mishlei. If you want to look it up, it's Mishlei, Proverbs chapter 6, 28 and 29, which speaks about someone who is burning with passion for a forbidden woman. It's like he'll walk on coals. He feels as if he's on fire because of his extreme passion. Like the Gemara says about Rav Amram Chasida, Nura Be Amram, the Gemara in Kedushin says, so passion, especially illicit passion, is associated with heat, with the burning desire. And then he says that this is also similar to shvichas damim, to bloodshed, because, I mean, it's not my own, I'm not being crass, he says, because it can lead to bloodshed. Because if he commits adultery and the woman's husband comes home and sees what the two of them are up to, he says either the husband will kill the adulterer, or maybe the adulterer will kill the husband, or, the possibility of bloodshed is certainly present in such a case. So that's how he explains the reference there to the white or to the red. Again, I'll just show you where it is. It's again in the same pasuk Chaf Daled, second half. V'haisa michvas michyas hamichva b'heres levana adam demes o levana. So adam demes, the red, the blood, is like we said, the bloodshed. Or levana is again through the humiliation. Again, look, I'm not trying to, how can I put it? One who's guilty of adultery has committed a grievous transgression between man and his fellow, between man and God. But if he's caught in the act, he could turn white as a sheet as a result. So again, the red and the white, Alshikh explains how in the Shvichas Damim and in the Gilu Arayas, we have the symbolism of those colors. The last two are in you can see them in Pasuk Chavtes. So it's verse 29. So on page 614, if you're with me in the stone chumash. V'isha ishakiyevo naga barosh o bezakan. So rosh o bezakan, he says, refers to the last two of our seven. I'll just review the seven. The Gemara in Erechon says that Negat Tzaras comes from Shavuos Shav, from a false oath, from theft, from Lashon Hara, from Gilu Araya, sexual immorality, from Shvichus Damim is bloodshed, and the last two are Gasus, Haruach, egocentrism, and Tzaras Ayin. So he says, Barosh, when if a person, if this nega is found to be a barosh on the head or bezakan on the beard. So he says Rosh, of course, refers to someone who is big-headed, who thinks that the world revolves around him. He's the top guy. He's the head. He thinks of himself as, head and shoulders above everyone else. That's Gasus Ruach, a person who is arrogant. So that's the reference to the Rosh. Zakan, the beard, not a little beard like I've got, but a proper, eye-catching beard that is associated with dignity, associated with respect, someone who deserves respect, or is you might say courting respect as well. So he says zakam is the opposite of tsaras ayim, meaning it will afflict his beard or that part of the face, because a person who honors others will be honored. Has mechabed ezehu mechubad, who is honorable, one who honors others. And mechabed is habrios, like the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos. So it says Alshikh that this person does not honor others because he looks down at others. He thinks others are insignificant or unworthy or undeserving of his attention, of his largesse, of his concern, saras ayin. He looks down in a judgmental way at everyone. So he does not honor others, and therefore he is not honored. And therefore it will afflict his zakan, which is associated with honor, with dignity, with respect, which he is not deserving of respect because he doesn't give respect, and he is like suffers the rebuke, as we were saying at the beginning, of the tsaras, in order to indicate, to highlight for him, or for her, by the way. Okay, maybe women don't have a beard, but still all of these are applicable to women equally as well. So just to summarize, review what we've seen tonight is that the phenomenon of tsaras, in a certain sense, is a gift. It is a gift that Hashem will alert a person at an early stage when he is subject to any of these failings that we've mentioned, because it's superficial, literally, it's on the skin only, it hasn't yet penetrated within, and only when the Jewish people collectively are worthy and are deserving will the tsaras system be operative. So therefore, there is a certain amount of joy in it, because to correct one's failings brings a person satisfaction and achievement and fulfillment. And then we said that the 7 causes of tsaras are all hinted to in this parsha in the way that we've seen. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight, and I wish everyone a good Shabbos and a good Chodesh.